China's population is in crisis. The total fertility rate is crashing. So let's talk about that. Let's first put some something on the screen. Yeah, some reports. Where is it? Here we are. And let's understand why this is important. It's very important. Yeah, people are suggesting other things. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. We have time. Yeah. So here is a news report from, look where it is. This is December 2007. This is what, 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago. This is a news report from that time. It says in 2007, they were projecting that China's population would reach 1.5 billion by 2033. This is what was being projected in 2007, that the peak would be around 1.5 billion by 2033. Let's look at a different news report. This is from January 2019, just 3-4 years ago. So in 2019, see, January 2019, 2007, they were saying it will peak in 2033, 1.5 billion. In 2019, they were saying, this is a BBC, haha. They were saying that China's population will peak in 2029 at 1.44 billion. That's what they were saying in 2019. Then what happened? This is an article from 2022. It says, could China's population start falling? Yeah. China's population is set to get smaller for the first time since the Great Famine struck 60 years ago, Mao's Great Famine. Why, and so on. Now let's look here. This is from January 18, 3 days ago. China records first population decline in 60 years. First decline in 60 years. Yeah. So it's now shrinking. The population is already shrinking. So the peak has come and gone. The peak that we're talking about, they first said there will be a peak in 2033. Then they said there will be a peak in 2029. Well, the peak, I don't know when it came, but it's already gone. And the Chinese population is now shrinking. It is declining. Yeah. And if you look here, if we see, there are various projections that people have made about China's population and how it will evolve. So this is one of those. So we are at let's say 2023, 24, whatever. It's 1.4 something billion. But by 2100, the Chinese population is projected to become about 766 million according to these projections over here. This is populationpyramid.net. There are various projections available online. Yeah. So the population of China by 2100, by the turn of this century, by the end of the century, will become almost half of what it is right now. That's called a demographic disaster. Yeah. Let's look at the fertility rate, number of births per woman in China. So if you look at 1960, 61, it was 3.9. Around 1963, it became 7.5. Then it started declining in the 1970s. Yeah. In the late 1970s, the Chinese started the reforms, the economic reforms. The TFR was about 2.5 until 1990. Then by 1991, it was below replacement. The replacement TFR, total fertility rate, is 2.1. Okay, in any nation. So since 91, it's been below that. Below. Now let's zoom in a little bit. Let's see it in the past few years. Let's see what happens here. So this is 2004, etc. 2017, it was 1.8. And then look what happens. 2018, 1.6. 2019, 1.5. 2020, 1.3. It is crashing precipitously in the last few years. It is horrible the way the population has, the TFR has crashed. So what happened in the last 2-3 years? From 1.8, it's dropped to 1.3. Now it is around 1.2 right now in 2022, 23. So something has gone wrong in China in just the last 3-4 years. Something has gone really wrong. So let's take a look at this article. The last generation, why China's youth are deciding against having children. Let's take a look at this article. And you can check it out. The link is up here. Yeah. So this is a story. Okay, there's a video over here. I'm not going to play the video, but this first paragraph is about what is in the video. The epidemic prevention workers stand in the doorway of the home of a couple who are refusing to be dragged to a quarantine facility in May 2022 during the infamous Shanghai lockdown. May 2022. Holding a phone in his hand, the man in the household tells the epidemic workers why he will not be taken by them. I have rights, he says. The epidemic prevention workers keep insisting that the couple must go with them. The conversation escalates. Finally, a man in full hazmat gear with the characters of for policeman, the Chinese characters for policeman, emblazoned on his chest, strides forward. Once you're punished, this will affect your family for 3 generations, he shouts, wagging a finger towards the camera. We are the last generation, thank you, comes the response. And the couple slam the door. Right? So this scene posted online went viral, and the phrase the last generation took the Chinese internet by storm. It captured a growing mood of inertia and hopelessness in the country, one that had been percolating for a number of years but finally boiled over during the COVID-19 pandemic. Right? The dark mood may be contributing to a key challenge for China, a widespread disinterest in having children. China's birth rate has declined precipitously in recent years. 2021, the most recent year for which there is data, 11 provinces fell into negative population growth, and so on. The TFR has fallen below the warning line. It's 1.16 in 2021. 1.16. Yeah, which is well below the 2.1 standard for a stable population. So that's what's happening, right? That is what's happening. The Chinese are now saying that many Chinese are now saying that we are the last generation. So the people of China are now disinterested in having children. Many of them are now disinterested in having children. The population, the TFR is declining drastically. And this is a huge challenge for China. The Chinese Communist Party wanted China to get rich before they got old, but the reverse has happened. China as a nation has got old before it got rich, right? So the birth rates are declining. Uh, Now let's take a look at other nations. Let's take a look at Japan. If you see Japan has been a poster child of the fertility crisis in Eastern Asia. So as you can see, this is a statistics from 1960 onwards. These are World Bank statistics. Yeah. So it's been around 1.3, 1.4, 1.4, etc. And right now it's around 1.4, 1.3. Yeah, 2020 it was 1.3. But Japan is doing better than China. We know the Japanese population is aging now. The average median population age is in the late 40s, I believe, in Japan, or the mid 40s. I don't remember exactly where. And the birth rate is way below the replacement level. But if you look at the statistics overall for Eastern Asia, Japan is doing actually better than everybody else. So overall in Eastern Asia, the TFR on average is 1.2. Yes. China, it's 1.16. It was that in 2021. Hong Kong 0.8. Imagine that. Macau 0.8. North Korea 1.8. South Korea 0.8. That's a disaster. South Korea is being destroyed by this thing. Mongolia is a very small nation, 2.8, which is good. Taiwan is 1.0, terrible. And overall, Japan is 1.3, which is the highest among the large nations, among the significant nations. So Japan is doing well. So compared to all the various other developed nations or highly developed nations in East Asia, Japan is doing really well. Yeah, among the major nations in Eastern Asia. So Japan is doing well. Now let's see over here what it is about India. Before we come to that, let's talk about what causes this to happen. What causes the total fertility rate to decline? One of the reasons, let's come back to the statistics in a while. So what causes TFR to decline? We are now seeing in India also the TFR has gone below 2.1. It's at 2.0 or something right now. In the past it was different. So what causes the total fertility rate of a nation or a population or a culture to decline? Firstly, it's typically because people are working too hard. Typically because both parents are working full time, they are exhausted, and the extended family system has disappeared. Now you have a nuclear family system, or maybe even single parents. Yeah. So who's going to take care of the kid? If you have a kid, who's going to take care of the kid? And that's one reason. So people are working too hard. Both parents have to work full time in order to have a decent standard of living. Yeah, stable income and all that. You need both parents to work full time. So which means that nobody is going to take care of the kids if there are any kids, or if the lady gets pregnant, then who's going to, half the income goes away if that happens. That's one of the things. Then you have high costs of living, very high costs of living, and very high costs of raising children. I mean, you want to send your kid to a good school, it's going to cost a lot of money every year. So that, again, it makes people reluctant to have multiple kids. One and enough, maybe two and enough. Even two is not happening these days. So it's extremely uh, it's extremely expensive to raise children. It's the costs of living are very high. Yeah, the more mouths, the more members you have in your family, the more the costs are. Yeah, and you obviously want to ensure that whatever child or children you have, they get the best possible education you can give them. Yeah, and if you have two or three, then you may have to compromise on that. So many people are opting for one, or many are not even having any kids. So they, and then both the parents have no time for children. uh, People are exhausted, and in some cases, in some nations, there is a sense of hopelessness. There is a loss of faith in the country and the system, which is what we are seeing in China. Yeah, and there's also the impact nowadays of what we call wokeism. Yeah, that and the glorification of single parent families, either a single mother, typically a single mother family. Men are bad, toxic masculinity. So wokeism is destroying this entire thing, and it's causing the TFR to drop in many nations, especially Western nations. Yeah, so these are the reasons why the birth rates are dropping in various nations. Now in India also it's dropping. In India also the TFR is dropping, because nowadays people are moving towards a more urban lifestyle. People are moving to larger cities. Even in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we have both parents typically working full time. Yeah, and that's the only way you can have a decent livelihood, a decent lifestyle. I mean, there is this entire real estate thing. Everybody wants to have a home. People buy a home which they can't afford. It typically costs like 50 lakh rupees, 1 crore rupees in big cities and all, just a one bedroom flat. Yeah, they take a loan to do that, and then they have to work for the next 20 years to repay that loan. And both parents typically have to work. Both spouses have to work. So these are the things that are contributing to India's declining fertility rate. So let's take a look at what's happening in India. Let's embiggen this. Yeah. So we spoke about East Asia. Let's take a look at India. So right now in 2019, 2020, the Indian TFR was 2.0. If you look at Ladakh, J&K, it's 1.3, 1.4. Most states are below 2. Gujarat is a large state, it's 1.9. Rajasthan and MP are 2.0. UP is still providing some hope, 2.4. Bihar is 3, but Manipur is 2.2. Jharkhand is 2.3, but overall it's less than 2. Yeah. So that the replacement rate, which is required for a stable population, is 2.1. Yeah. And in India we find lots of influencers and people saying that don't get married, don't have children, or only have one child. That is a disastrous thing to espouse, and I will explain why. Yeah. So this is the deal in India. This is, of course, we still have we are still at 2, which is not bad. So India is now projected to overtake China as the world's most populous country by 2023. It may already have happened. Some people are reporting that India has overtaken China. So India is expected to peak at 1.7 billion in 2064. That's what is being projected. Let's take a look here. Once again, let's compare India and China. Uh, so India's median average age of the Indian population is in the late 20s. Yeah, it's below 30, maybe 27, 28, somewhere around there. In China it's in the late 40s, maybe 47, 48, kind of around where Japan is right now. So China is facing a similar situation when it comes to average age of the population as Japan. But China's TFR has fallen even below Japan, and China is an enormous nation. So that's a disaster in the making. Yeah. So India is in a much better and more advantageous position right now. That's what we call the demographic dividend. We have to take a full advantage of this. Let's see some other. See, this is from a book which I forget, but it's from 2016. So, table of Asian countries and UN calculated window of demographic opportunity. Window of demographic opportunity for China. The demographic opportunity window was 1990 to 2025. As of 2016, 9 years remaining. As of today, 2 or 3 years left for China's demographic window of opportunity. Korea, The window was from 1985 to 2030. I think they're talking about the unified Korea, if I'm or South Korea, doesn't matter. It's up to 2030, and then the window will close. For Japan, it's gone. The window was up to 1995. That's what it says. Indonesia 2040, Singapore 2015. So Singapore also, it's gone, the opportunity. Vietnam 2040, and India 2050. So of all these major nations in Asia, India has the biggest window of opportunity, the window of demographic opportunity. It's up to 2050, right? Of course, our TFR is also falling right now, so we have to do something about it. But we have the biggest window of opportunity, and India is now growing well compared to all the other nations economically. Yeah, and here's more: China's population distribution by age group, millions. So 2020, 20 to 64 age group, sorry, 19 and younger is 318 million, 65 and older is 173 million, and all. By 2060, you can see that it's going to shift significantly. So that's the deal. So the younger cohort in the demographic stratum is going to shrink significantly by 2060, and the population is going to age significantly. So that is what's happening in China. So in India, we have this demographic window which the UN says will be open until 2050, and our TFR is also dropping. So we have to ensure that the TFR, India's TFR, does not drop rapidly, because that is going to cause, if that happens, it will cause a significant crash in a demographic crisis after 2 or 3 generations, after 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 years. Yeah, it won't happen now. It's going to be a disaster half a century in the future. So the Chinese, they adopted this one child policy, which was imposed upon them by the CCP, by the Chinese Communist Party, and you can see what's happening now. And now the TFR is declining even more rapidly, and you're gonna see the consequences of that in 20 to 40 years. It's gonna be a disaster for China. Yeah. So China is a cautionary tale for all of us. We obviously have an enormous population, 1.4 billion in a subcontinent sized in the nation of India is actually very high. Historically, undivided India would used to have a population of about 300 million. Yeah, that's almost one fifth of what we have today. So we have a population that may be too large for us. But the solution is not to stop having children or only have a one child policy or even a two child policy. We need to slowly, gradually, over maybe a century, bring the population to a more manageable level. But the solution is not to stop having children. That's going to cause a disaster in the future. So those people, I mean, the people who are saying to stop getting married, stop having kids, they mean well, but they have not thought through the consequences of what they are preaching, right? So China is the best example. It's the best cautionary tale that we can think of. Let's not go down the way to China, the way of China. And Shinzo Abe, the late Japanese leader, he kept on exhorting the people of Japan to have children. Yeah, and so Japan seems to be kind of following what he has been saying. They are doing better than China and most other nations in Eastern Asia. So that's also a message that we Indians need to heed. We should have children, and we should have children reasonably early. If you have children in your late 30s or mid 30s, you will be it will be very difficult for you to raise those kids, because you are, by the time you're in your mid 30s and early 40s, that's the peak of your career. Yeah, and that's where you need to establish yourself thoroughly. And if you're going to have kids, then it's going to be extremely hard to balance these two aspects of life. The best policy is to have kids in your early 20s, and by the time you're in your early 40s, your kids have grown up, and then you can concentrate on career, because by the time you're in your 40s, you fully mature as an adult. Until you are 40, you are still kind of growing and learning, and you're still not completely mature. So you should have kids early. That's the message, that's the cautionary message that China gives us, and that's what Shinzo Abe used to exhort the people of Japan: have kids, and have kids early, and at least have two kids. Every couple should have at least two kids, and let the population drop very gradually. We cannot engineer society or try to re-engineer society uh, artificially and unnaturally. Yeah. So that is the cautionary tale that China gives us. Now, why is this population drop of China so dangerous? Let's take a look at this. Look at the incredible precipitous drop in China's population. It is dangerous because now the Chinese Communist Party is going to preside over a country that is not going to have good economic growth. The economy is right now shrinking. Even if they are able to reboot the economy, start off manufacturing again, and all that, people are despondent, people are tired. And the Chinese Communist Party's grip over the nation is so strong that the only form of protest that is left for the people of China is to stop having kids, which means that you can enslave us, but you will not be able to enslave the future generations. We will not give you future generations to enslave. That's what's happening in China. So the people are, this is called passive aggressive resistance. The only form of resistance left for the people of China is passive aggression, not having kids. So that's the kind of sentiment you are seeing in China right now. These horrible, draconian, drastic lockdowns caused because the Chinese vaccine doesn't work. It's ruined Chinese society. I really feel sorry for the people of China. Yeah. So the Chinese Communist Party is now going to preside. Mr. Xi Jinping, President Xi, Emperor Xi, is going to preside over a population that is not in the mood to cooperate, a population that has lost hope in the country and the leadership, a population that doesn't want to have any kids, which means it's a population that wants to just end itself. That's the kind which has a death wish. That's the kind of population the Chinese are Communist Party is going to preside over. And you may see eruptions of protests and discontent and malcontent, which could be very dangerous for the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party has this unspoken, unwritten social contract with the people of China. The social contract is that you must obey us completely, fully. In exchange for that, we're gonna give you good standards of living and high economic growth, and we're gonna give you back pride in your country. So the country is gonna do very well. The China is going to become a great power. The Middle Kingdom, it will become a superpower, and we will make a country, create a country that you can be proud of. In exchange for that, you must accept our dictatorship, and you must accept whatever we impose on you. That's the kind of social contract China has had under the Chinese Communist Party. Now the Chinese Communist Party is not slowly going into dangerous territory because it's no longer in a position to keep on fulfilling its end of the bargain: great standards of living, great economic growth, uh, and pride in the nation. China is not doing that well anymore. Many nations have stopped trusting China after the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19, yeah. The Belt and Road Initiative is floundering. The Maritime Silk Road is floundering. The Chinese are trying their best, they're trying to expand BRICS and all that, but overall China is on the decline. So the Chinese Communist Party is no longer in a position to hold its end of the bargain, and as the years go by, it will be increasingly under more and more pressure from itself, from its own malcontent leaders, from the population, which may erupt into any kind of into things that they don't like. And when this sort of situation presents itself, and it's increasingly presenting itself, the leadership may look for diversions and distractions outside the country, which means the Chinese Communist Party may go into an expansionist mode, territorial expansion, maybe start wars with other nations, maybe go for Taiwan, maybe start something with India if they dare to, maybe something else. So a nation that is cornered is a dangerous nation, especially when it is still a very large economy and it has a very large military. That's a dangerous nation. Yeah. So if the Chinese Communist Party starts feeling the pressure, starts feeling the heat, and if things go for bad even further, and if they panic for whatever reason, it could be a very dangerous time for the world. Yeah, they could try something in Taiwan, they could try something in India, they could try something with Japan, they could try something somewhere else. Who knows? Yeah. So these are dangerous times. We are living in dangerous times. We're living in what they call interesting times. Yeah, things are changing very rapidly. We are witnessing, my dear friends, we are witnessing in real time a complete transformation of the global geopolitical climate and the geopolitical landscape. Yeah. Uh, so this is overall dangerous for Asia. It's dangerous for India. It may be good news for the US if the decline continues. Even the US, I'm not sure what the TFR is in the US. Shall we take a look at the TFR in the US? What is the population? Let's see what's happening in the United States. The US will be all the way at the bottom because it's U. Let's find out how is it for the US. UVW, United States. Okay, the US is at 2.6 apparently. The US is at 2.6. United, let's put that on the screen. No, it won't take it. Okay, so I just took a look. For the US, the TFR is at 1.6, which is not that bad as compared to China. It's not that bad as compared to Russia. I don't know, Russia, Japan, and so on. Uh, but in the US also, I believe the TFR must be declining, and there are all kinds of reasons for that. Like I said, wokeism is a big cause for the decline of TFR in a nation. Yeah, uh, they talk about they glorify single parent families, especially a family where the only parent is a woman, uh, and things like that. So that is going to cause the decline of a population. And the US is in American society is in chaos right now. It's in turmoil. Uh, so that's what we are witnessing worldwide. The overall TFR of the world is declining, and especially for China, it's declined very precipitously. So that's why we are living through dangerous times. And the most frightening thing is that the people of China are now protesting by not having kids. That's the only form of protest they have left to themselves. Yeah, imagine how authoritarian, how brutal, how draconian the society is, where the only form of protest we have left is that we will not have kids anymore. That's sad. That's genuinely sad. So that's where we are, and that's dangerous times for all of us. So India needs to keep a very close eye on China, because the Chinese Communist Party is definitely feeling the heat. It's feeling the pressure. Yeah. So yeah, that's something that's happening in China, and that's something that's important for us in India. China is declining. Overall, it's good for the world that if this draconian, authoritarian, dangerous nation declines, but it's also dangerous.